Hey, what's up guys, DarkArmedDuelist and today doing a Pendulum Magician deck profile. So I'm really excited for you guys because we finally have Beyond the Pendulum and even got Monkey Board back at 1 on the last list, making Pendulum best deck. Let's go! So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell there so you can come part of notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards, like getting your name description for every single video, getting a signed card sent in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your patron, along with test hands. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're playing 3 copies of Double Iris Magician. This card is a great 3-out for the deck that has the ability that once per turn, you can target a dark spellcaster type monster you control and apply this effect to it, and then destroy this card. Once applied, double any battle damage that monster inflicts to your opponent this turn if it battles an opponent's monster, which is great for the deck just to do extra damage. This card also has the ability, if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can add a Pendulum Graph card from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect. We then played 2 copies of Purple Magician. Purple Magician is really good in the deck as well because it has the ability that once per turn, if your dark spellcaster type monster battles before damage calculation, you can activate this effect that monster gains 12 on attack until the end of the damage step, and then you destroy this card. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can target one face-up card on the field and destroy it, which is a great effect. We then play a single copy of Black Fang Magician. Black Fang Magician is a great card for the deck as well, but you really only need a single copy of this card. But it has the ability that once per turn, you can target one face-up monster that your opponent controls, and its attack becomes half its current attack until the end of this turn, and then destroy this card. And if this card is destroyed by battle or by card effect, then you can target one dark spellcaster monster in your graveyard and special summon it, which is a really good effect. We then play 3 copies of Harmonizing Magician. Harmonizing Magician is a great 3-out for the deck because it has the ability that it cannot be special summoned from the X deck, and it cannot be used as a material for a Fusion Synchro XZ unless all other monsters are Pendulum Magician monsters. And when this card is Pendulum summoned from your hand, you can special summon a Magician Pendulum monster from your deck and defense position, except another copy of this card, but its effects are negated, and banish it when it leaves the field, which is really good because it gives you 2 level 4 monsters on your side of the field, so you can go in for some really awesome plays, while also giving you a tuner on the field. We then play 3 copies of Wisdom Eye Magician. Wisdom Eye Magician is a really good 3-out in the deck. The only thing you gotta watch out for this card is when you combo it with your copies of Pendulum Call, because your copy of Wisdom Eye will actually try and destroy itself, and your copy of Pendulum Call won't allow it to, so that's something you gotta kind of watch out for in this deck. But Wisdom Eye Magician has the ability, if you have a Magician or Perform Pal card in your other Pendulum zone, you can destroy this card, and if you do, you place a Magician Pendulum monster from your deck in your Pendulum zone, except another copy of this card, which is really good because it can actually fix your scales. We then play 3 copies of Oath Dragon Magician. Oath Dragon Magician is a great 3-of as well because it has the ability that if you have a Magician card in your other Pendulum zone, you can add one face-up Magician Odd Eyes Pendulum monster from your X deck to your hand, except another copy of this card, which is really good because you can grab any of your Odd Eyes cards or any of your Magician cards and just grab them back to your hand. It also has a monster effect that if this card is normal or special summoned, then you can target a Magician Pendulum monster or an Odd Eyes monster in your graveyard, except another copy of this card, and add it back to your hand, which is really good. We then play a single copy of Dragon Pit Magician. Dragon Pit Magician is a great 1-of in this deck because it has a Pendulum effect that once per turn, if you have a Magician card in your other Pendulum zone, then you can discard a Pendulum monster and then target a spell or trap on the field and destroy it, which comes in very handy if we get skill drained. We then play a single copy of Astrograph Sorcerer. Astrograph Sorcerer is so fun to be able to play, and I'm so glad they put this card back at 1. It has the ability that if a card that you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then you can choose one monster in your graveyard, X deck, or that's banished and that was destroyed this turn, and add a monster with the same name from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect. We then play 3 copies of Chronograph Sorcerer. Chronograph Sorcerer is a great 3-of in the deck because it has the ability that during your main phase you can destroy this card, and if you do, you take a Time Gazer Magician from your hand or deck and either place it in your Pendulum zone or special summon it, which is a really good effect to just get this card into the X deck while also setting a Pendulum scale or giving us an additional monster on our field. And it has a monster effect that if a card you control is destroyed by battle or by card effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and then you can special summon another monster from your hand hand as well, which is really good to get you 2 monsters on your field. We then play just a single copy of Time Gazer Magician so we can summon it off the Chronograph Sorcerer. We then play 3 copies of Skullcrabat Joker. Skullcrabat Joker is great in the deck, and it's just such a good card because it's the best normal summon, because when it's normal summon, you can add a Perform Pal monster, Magician Pendulum monster, or an Odd Eyes monster from your deck to your hand, which is just absolutely insane to get to any of the cards that you need in the deck. We then play 3 copies of Perform Pal Pendulum Sorcerer. Pendulum Sorcerer is a really good 3F. I did consider cutting it down to 2, but it's still a really good 3F for the deck to help you combo and get your cards out on your side of the field super fast. We then play a single copy of Perform Pal Celestial Magician. I played just a single copy of this card now, and it's still really good because it is a Perform Pal and a Magician Pendulum monster in the deck, so you can combo with all sorts of different pieces. We then play a single copy of Perform Pal Monkey Board. This card is absolutely insane. I'm so glad that they put this card back to 1, because it has the ability that unless you have a Perform Pal card in your other Pendulum zone, this card's Pendulum scale becomes 4. And then during your main phase, if this card was activated this turn, then you can add a level 4 or lower Perform Pal monster from your deck to your hand, and you can only use the effects of this card once per turn. As a monster effect, you can discard this card and reveal Perform Pal or Odd Eyes monster in your hand, and if you do, reduce the levels of monsters in your hand with the same name by 1 for the rest of the turn. This card is really good for its Pendulum effect, basically getting you your Pendulum scale and also setting up for all sorts of really good plays. We then play 3 copies of Abyss Actor Curtain Raiser. This card is a great 3F for the deck because it has the ability that if you control no monsters, you can special summon this card from your Pendulum zone, but you can only use the effect of this card once per duel, which is still really good in the deck to be able to just get you a monster on your side of the field so you can start rolling with your plays. So that's it for the Pendulum monsters, guys. Let's get into the regular monsters that we're playing in the deck. So for the regular monsters we're playing in the deck, we're playing 2 copies of Tuning Magician. Tuning Magician is really good. I did consider bumping this card up to 3, but we're already over 40 cards in this deck, so I just played 2 copies of this card. It has the ability, if you have 2 Magician cards in your Pendulum zone while this card's in your hand or grave, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field, and you can only use the effects of this card once per turn. And if this card is normal or special summon, your opponent gains 400 life points and you take 400 points of life points, which is not that big of a deal because you're just putting this card on your side of the field, so you can go for some really good plays. And then make a single copy of Artifact Scythe because it's super easy to pop this card with your copy of Wonder Magician off your copy of Needle Fiber, which is really cool to be able to lock your opponent out of the extra deck. And then play a single copy of Destrudo. Destrudo is just really good in the deck to be able to put on your side of the field as a tuner monster, so you can go in for all sorts of really good plays, and it also summons out to your side of the field, then link it away for your copy of Needle Fiber with any other monster, which is really cool. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to be playing a single copy of Star Pendulum Graph. Star Pendulum Graph is a great one in the deck because it's super easy to search this card, but your opponent cannot target spellcaster monsters that you control with spell effects, which is really good to give that all of your monsters that spell protection. It also has the ability of a face-up Magician Pendulum monster, or a face-up Magician Pendulum monster cards leaves your monster zone or Pendulum zone, you can add a Magician Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. You can only use each effect of this card once per turn. This card is really good in the deck to be able to just search this card and get you all sorts of searches and give that blanket protection. We then play just 2 copies of Pendulum Call. I'm only playing 2 copies of this card because it's worked so well at 2. I don't feel like you need the 3rd copy of it because you play Wisdom Eye in the deck and so many of your cards destroy themselves. So this card can be a really good searcher, but also can be able to like stop your plays as well. But this card has the ability to discard a card and then add 2 Magician Pendulum monsters with different names from your deck to your hand. Also, until the end of your opponent's next turn, after this card resolves, Magician cards in your Pendulum zone cannot be destroyed by card effects, which is the only downside of this card. It's a really good effect to protect your cards, but also it's a downside because of Wisdom Eye Magician. But it also has the ability that you can only activate 1 Pendulum Call per turn, and you cannot activate this card if you activate a Magician monster's Pendulum effect this turn. Means you can't use the copy of Wisdom Eye before this card so that you can use it basically in the same turn. We then play 3 copies of Duelist Alliance. Duelist Alliance is a really good card because if there's a card in your Pendulum zone, you can add a Pendulum monster or a Pendulum Spell or Trap from your deck to your hand, which is a really good effect to get the exact cards that you need. So that's it for these spells, guys. Let's get into the single trap that we're playing in the deck. And the only trap we're playing in the deck is a single copy of Time Pendulum Grab. This card is a really good one in the deck because your opponent cannot target spellcaster monsters you control with trap card effects, and you can only use each of the following effects this card once per turn. That you can target a Magician Pendulum monster, and then it has the ability that you can target a Magician Pendulum cards in your monster zone or Pendulum zone and one card your opponent controls and destroy them. Then, if this effect did not destroy 2 cards, you can send a card on the field to the graveyard, which is really good because this card pretty much guarantees you're going to out at least 1 card on the field. So that's it for the main deck, guys. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to be playing a single copy of Beyond the Pendulum. I'm so glad we finally got this card, and it makes Pendulum the best deck. Let's go! So this card is so good in the deck. It has the ability that takes 2 effect monsters, including a Pendulum monster, to summon this card to your side of the field. And if this card is link summoned in the extra monster zone, which you're always going to, you can pay 1,200 life points to add a Pendulum monster from your deck to your hand. But for the rest of the turn, unless you Pendulum summon after this effect resolves, you can't activate monster effects, and effects of any cards in your Pendulum zone are negated. And if 2 monsters with different original levels are Pendulum summoned in the same time to zones this card points to, you can target 2 cards on the field and destroy them, which is absolutely insane. This card pops 2 cards and also gives you a search, which is really, really good. Also, its link zones are just absolutely insane for the deck. That gives you 2 downwards arrows so that you can Pendulum summon to both of those zones from the extra deck. We then play a single copy of Access Code to be able to pop cards on the field. This card comes in very handy to be able to pop cards on the field just so you can go in for game. 1 copy of Appaloosa because it's super easy to make to give you a bunch of monster negates on the field. 1 copy of Selene because it helps you climb into your copy of Access Code. Super easy in the deck. It's just a really good card overall. 1 copy of the Dark Charmer because we're playing so many different dark cards in this deck to be able to summon this card to your side of the field and also be able to get cards out of the opponent's graveyard with this card's effect. 1 copy of Artifact Dagda because it works with Scythe. 1 copy of Needle Fiber. Needle Fiber is really good because you can either go for Needle Fiber and go into Selene and Selene up to Access Code, or you can summon out Needle Fiber to summon out your copy of Wonder Magician to be able to pop the Scythe off the Dagda's effect to be able to lock your opponent out of the extra deck. We then play a single copy of Artemis because it's a really good spellcaster monster to get your cards out of the extra monster zone, and it also has the ability that basically it has that upward arrow, which is really nice. We then play a single copy of Time Star Magician. Time Star Magician is super easy to summon in the deck. It's just an overall great card because once per turn you can detach an XZ material from this card and then add to your hand 1 dark spellcaster type monster from your deck graveyard or face up from your extra deck, which is a really, really good effect. We then play a single copy of Tornado Dragon just to be able to pop spells and traps on the field. And you can actually make this card to be able to pop your copy of Scythe during your opponent's turn because it is a quick effect, or during either player's turn effect, which is really, really good. 1 copy of Baguska basically to lock down the field. This card comes in very, very handy in the deck. 1 copy of Double A Zeus to board wipe the field. This is really good in the deck, especially if you know you can go in for game after you use it. 1 copy of Baron de Fleur because it's super easy to make this card with your Scythe combo because you pretty much just go in for your copy of Artifact Scythe with Wonder Magician, and then Wonder Magician can actually synchro summon during the opponent's turn. So you just use this card plus your Artifact Scythe to be able to go into your copy of Baron, giving you a negate and locking your opponent out of the extra deck. We then play a single copy of Borreload Savage. Borreload Savage is just really good because it can basically get you a bunch of negates on the field. And finally, TG Wonder Magician. This card is super easy to summon off your copy of Needle Fiber because Needle Fiber will just get rid of itself off the field. Summon this out to your side of the field, use this effect to be able to pop Scythe, and then you can use this card plus the Scythe, which is 2 level 5 monsters to go into Baron de Fleur, which is really, really cool. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you did enjoy it. This deck is absolutely insane. I love Pendulum. I love this deck. Like, this deck is so good now that we have Beyond the Pendulum. It's so fun to be able to play, and it's just absolutely amazing that we have this card, because this card is helping out the deck so much to be able to play it, especially since we don't have Electromite, which is totally fine now that we have Beyond the Pendulum. So, anyways, guys, this is DarkArmedDuelist. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. And remember, Pendulum best deck. Let's go. See you later, guys.